Hey everyone, Ryan here again with the CactusCon crew, and this is actually our last talk of the conference. So this is the last Q&A session. I'm here with Tracy, who just gave an awesome talk. Tracy, hello, and thank you for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Heck yeah. I am going to run a couple of our giveaways real quick for folks, and then we'll get to your talk.
Okay.
All right, so here's a little giveaway for CactusCon 8 hardware badges. We have 2 of them available, and they are going to Berman and Walmart. I had to chuckle on that name. And Walmart, all right. And next up, we have the complete Boot Rogue strategy guide. We have 2 more of those available. At least we did, because now they're gone. And they are going to, ooh, how do you pronounce that? Suranatama. Sure, I'm sure I butchered that. And I won't even try that one. C3NOB Zvoli. Awesome. So congrats to those folks. We have one more thing to give away, and that was the final 2 copies of the physical signed Ted Demopolis's InfoSec Rockstar book, and those are going out to, well, look at that. We have a repeat winner from the very last giveaway I just did. Suranatama, that's how I'm going to pronounce that. Oh, cleaning up shop. All right, cool. And then Spike Roach or Spike Roche, one of those 2. Thank you, everyone who put in for those giveaways. Keep in mind, we have another giveaway. We have 2 more, actually, coming up in our closing ceremonies. Please be there. We'll be giving away that free SANS course. So, Tracy, where did you get the idea for this talk? What originally kicked it in? You're like, this is what I want to present on.
So if anyone has been kind of following me on Twitter, you'll know that IoT is a bit new-ish to me. So I kind of crash landed into IoT. So a lot of this was when I started doing IoT security analysis. I wanted to think like a hacker. And the thing that any hacker knows is you want to go for your biggest blast radius with your lowest amount of effort. And MQTT is really interesting in that way because if you guys remember the old hub and spoke networks, it's very much like that. You have a very central vulnerability because you have one central server that does a lot of things to a lot of things. And so I started looking into how to attack MQTT and, more importantly, for my job, how to secure it. And I got to talking to some other folks that I know that have been veterans in this industry, and they said, what's an MQTT? And I thought, well, I bet if they don't know it, there's some other folks out there that don't know it. And so I made a talk, and here we are.
I love that you mentioned that because as we were talking about offline, I saw your tweet recently where you basically were saying, I'm paraphrasing your own words, so maybe I just asked, but when you were saying, I normally wouldn't do talks in the past, but I've been at conferences where I've heard people asking questions and essentially realized, well, I know about that. And if they didn't know about that, why can't I just present on that? So I love that attitude. That's awesome. Awesome.
Well, and I started running a con here in Seattle, and that actually changed my perspective on a lot of things. I think I always thought that in order to present at a con, I had to be the person coming out on DEF CON stage, dropping O-Day, like the leadest of the elite. The only thing it was me and God who knew that specific, vulnerability. And then I actually started thinking that there's a lot of space in InfoSec for folks that aren't doing advanced research, aren't doing O-Days, are doing, pretty normal stuff every day. And those are the talks that actually influence my work the most because I don't do advanced research detection or advanced, malware development. That's not what I do.
I like that you say that too, because personally, I tell people all the time, I don't think I'll ever personally be on the DEF CON stage. I got to do a DEF CON workshop, and that's because I realized I can just do a workshop. I train people all the time. That's what I live and breathe, right? But the fella or the gal or the person dropping O-Days, that's not me. So I love that. I mean, you and I think very similarly in that. Let me just show you this cool stuff that I learned. I've also sometimes in the past submitted talks for things I didn't know how to do. And then just so that when they accept it, I'm like, all right, well, I need to learn now. Time to learn. We had a pretty good question in the chat that came up. And the question was, are there any APTs that are targeting IoT devices on MQTT? And then a reference essentially after that to the Mirai botnet.
Yeah, so the interesting thing is most of the MQTT botnets, and I'm going to use that term in a very squishy way, go after denial of service, because MQTT, one of the easiest things to do is to overwhelm the broker. There hasn't been like a ton of what I would call super advanced level, like let's go after MQTT and make all your light bulbs explode, like things like that. But I mean, if you can kind of war game it out, that is the potential that we see in front of us, right? Like you have a bunch of MQTT brokers that are poorly configured, a bunch of IoT devices that are also poorly configured. It's just kind of a recipe for disaster.
I like it. Working as an IR consultant, we often run into exactly, the blast radius, trying to get the biggest bang for your buck. It makes me think of general like exploit kits and mouse spam campaigns. Just throw it out there and just see what happens. So I like the overall idea of how you approached it. Think like a hacker, right? And that's how you're successful in researching and or thwarting a lot of this stuff. So you mentioned you haven't been long into IoT. What really got you into IoT? Was there a specific thing or event or?
It's really funny. Pure coincidence, I think. And I'm sorry, my cat just broke into my office, so I guess she's going to join for Q&A. Sorry, she's very not okay with being left out of anything. So I kind of fell into Q&A or to IoT. Sorry, this job opened up, and I had done missile defense systems, which is sort of like the pre-IoT, if you will. Like back before there was the Internet of Things, there was just the industrial Internet of Things. And so I had some experience with that, but I'd spent most of my career doing more traditional AppSec. I worked for Microsoft doing Office MSRC work. I worked doing tooling. I've done a bunch of different things. But this opportunity kind of cross-sected my life, and I thought, why not? In fact, I went in and I told all of my friends, I said, I'll probably screw this up and I'll probably get fired in the first 6 months. But in 6 months, I will know more than I did 6 months ago. So.
I like it. I like that a lot. It shows that it's just become a passion out of, in general, curiosity. Kind of got you and folks like us to really jump into the deep end, Here's a good question. Can our community convince the manufacturers of the IoT devices to recommend network segmentation to their customers?
Can we recommend it? Sure. I think there's a lot of body of regulatory guidance out there that already recommends it. I think, though, that this is the same fight. I always tell people being in IoT is a lot like being in IT in like the mid 2000s, where everything was just sort of a clown rodeo, and it was like no passwords on anything, and nothing was segmented. It was a completely flat network. It's almost deja vu like, and so it's very much an evolution of maturity and engineering cycles, and getting these devices that are manufactured at sometimes a couple dollars a piece, getting them to include security features is a hard sell, because consumers won't pay the difference. They just won't. Historically, they won't. And so that falls back on providers of cloud services, providers of connectivity services, to make it easier for those manufacturers to do the right thing, to do the secure thing, and keep the cost to a way that they can still be profitable.
I purchased I guess I won't say the company, I won't bust them out, but I purchased a DVR unit, 8 or 12 camera. We had some break-ins at our previous residence. When we first moved in, we were greeted 30 days in, and we had our door kicked in. We're like, that's cool. Welcome to the neighborhood. And I installed a camera system after we installed it all, and then hid the receiver and all this stuff. We then found out the password can only be there were no other options but to have a 6-digit password. That was the only option. So it didn't really matter what permutation I chose. It was insecure as all heck. And remote capability to it was always enabled if it was internet connected whatsoever. And I'm like, cool. So I can watch my house while I'm at work to feel secure, but so can everyone else. Like, great, right? And that was
and I do this for a living, and this was sort of one of those dope moments that I had. Everyone knows you should segment your IoT, right? Like, you shouldn't have it on the same LAN as like your computers and everything else. Sorry. You are annoying. I don't know if you know this. So I, in the best of intentions, went, I should probably get around to doing that. And started in my Google Home Wi-Fi and realized that you have guest Wi-Fi and not guest Wi-Fi. And those are your two options. That's it. So, we don't make it easy for consumers to do this. We don't make it obvious what to do or how to do it. And I was talking to another engineer on my team the other day. He had restricted UDP outbound on his home router, and his smart plug stopped working. Why? Because it had a UDP keep alive beacon that homed back to Shenzhen that said, hey, I'm still here, keep me alive. He's like, I don't know what it's doing or what they're getting from it, but it will not work unless I allow UDP outbound. And it's, there's just so much in the network that we don't know about. And I think for not security people, it can be almost overwhelming. That was a really long answer to a very, very short question. I apologize.
You're perfectly fine. But what you just made me think of is a potential attack if they have a UDP-based packet coming in with whatever data that basically says you're okay to continue running. What would stop someone from sending one that says you're not okay to continue running?
Exactly. And
playing that, and then anyway,
Yeah, exactly. And that's now, if you extrapolate that out to manufacturers who use the same, if you listen to the talk, you'll hear me say a lot about using certificate-based auth and TLS, and that's great, except you'll find that many manufacturers use the same certificate for hundreds of thousands of devices. And they put it in non-protected memory. So I can buy, camera A and camera B and steal the certificate off it and pretend like camera B is now camera A, and it's virtually indistinguishable.
Yeah, that gives me a warm and fuzzy. I mean, we're fine. Everything's fine. Everything's fine.
Everything's fine. It's fine.
Yeah, I think the scary thing for me is like the future in terms of how much more prevalent IoT is going to become. I mean, you look at it now, right? Hell, we have shoelaces that connect to the internet at this point. Come on, what? So anywho, Tracy, thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your talk. Thank you for hanging out with me here to do our Q&A. And we're going to kick off now. Anything you want to end with? If you want to give a shout out to your conference?
Oh, yeah. For folks that have followed me on Twitter, at DefendCon has been now for 3 years. We took 2020. We're trying really hopefully in meet space whenever everything is over, but check us out at defendcon.org, or you can follow us on Twitter at DefendCon, or you can follow me on Twitter at DatSecurityChick, and you'll get all the information on, I think, a really cool con here up in Seattle, which is actually how I met Jess, who is part of the CactusCon crew.
And I learned about CactusCon because of Jess also. Jess is a very important staff member in terms of just general networking. So very cool. Thank you very much again. And hey, appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me.